Hey, we're coming into this one with only two insights. One, I think this is a country song, and two, somebody told me that it was really controversial. But being people who are never afraid to shy away from the controversial, we're going to dive right into it and tell you what we think. This is Jason Aldean's song, Try That in a Small Town.
Sucker punch somebody on a sidewalk, carjacking old lady at a red light, pull a gun on the owner of a liquor store. You think it's cool, act a fool if you like, cuss out a cop, spit in his face, stomp on the flag and light it up. Yeah, you think you're tough. Well, try that in a small town, see how far you make it down the road. Around here we take care of our own. You cross that line, it won't take long for you to find out. I recommend you don't try that in a small town.
I can't see why anyone would be upset.
Controversial? What's controversial?
I can't see why anyone would be upset. Particularly people who riot in the streets must love this song.
Let's keep going.
Got a gun that my granddad gave me. They say one day they're gonna round up. Well, that shit might fly in the city. Good luck, try that in a small town. See how far you make it down the road. Around here we take care of our own. You cross that line, it won't take long for you to find out. I recommend you don't try that in a small town full of good old boys raised up right. If you're looking for a fight, try that in a small town. Try that in a small town.
All right, we've gone through 2/3 of the song now. I think it's time.
All right, never afraid to shy away from controversy. First of all, this sounds more like a rock song than a country song to me.
That's how country is nowadays. Let me
Okay.
just ask a quick question. What do you think the controversial
Are you asking me or them?
I'm asking you.
This is a question for you too, if you want.
What do you think
Okay.
the claim was to the people who were making this song, who were building the controversy, who were on the other side from this song?
I
What do you
would.
think their claim was?
Oh, so you read about this stuff a little bit.
I've read one thing. It's the only thing I know about the
Okay,
controversy.
I would say that it's probably that it sounds like a call to violence and an advocacy for violence. That's what I would guess is what
That's not the claim.
they don't like the country style voice with the rock instrumentals.
Not the claim.
Okay, I didn't mind it.
The claim is that the song is racist.
Sorry, what?
That's the claim. The song is racist, and it was taken off the radio on many radio stations across the nation for racism. That's the claim. And now you know all I know about the controversy of what's going on here. I've kind of avoided reading about it because I figured we'd probably react to it. I do know that people are calling this racist.
To give everybody who may be feeling uneasy about this song the benefit of the doubt, one person said that. Because I don't think very many people, like very many normal, sane, healthy people are saying like that this is a racist song.
They're saying that it's racist because he's speaking out against BLM.
He was speaking out against rioting. Anyway, okay. Do you think this is...
I'm just telling you what their claims are.
All right, now it's just going to get more controversial. Do you guys think that this is a racist song? Because I don't see racism in the song. But I could definitely see why there might be other reasons people might be against it, right? Like one of the claims he makes is, like, you can come try to take our guns, basically. Like, maybe that works in the city, but it doesn't work in a small town, you know? And for those who live in a society without weapons, that might seem rather brash. In the society that I grew up in, so I'm from Alaska, I can very much understand his point of view. Because everybody has guns. We just don't kill each other with them. But we do use them to, like, defend ourselves, and we do use them to hunt and keep our house and our family safe and to protect our personal
Out in Alaska from
selves.
bears.
People, you know, like, a lot of murderers escape and go to Alaska. Did you know that?
No,
That's
I had no
a thing.
idea.
Yeah, that's a thing. They're like, oh, I can go to Alaska and start over. So that's a thing too. So yes, but also bears, you know,
It's not like murder has a high recidivism rate for crime or anything.
Well, controversial. All right. But anyway, my point is that there are a lot of people who live with the belief, including myself, that people have the right to protect themselves. And of course, that's very different from people have the right to, like, take out their guns and go blaka blaka all over town, or to just start shooting people because you don't like them. Nobody's for that unless you're like a straight up criminal, in my estimation. That said, I can understand because I've had a lot of conversations, especially with, we used to have a podcast where we interviewed people from, like, heads of organizations and best-selling authors and stuff. And we met with the head of the biggest anti-gun lobby in the United States.
Yes, we did.
And we had conversations with them. We also met with an organization that deals with the intersection between guns and mental health.
Yes, we did.
And then we had those two groups come together and we had a conversation all together with all of us.
It was awesome.
It was really cool, really insightful. And the thing that I learned is that everybody is kind of afraid that everybody thinks of them the same way that, but it's like from both sides. It's weird to say, it's weird to, like, put it into words.
Everyone thinks the other side sees them as the caricature of themselves.
Right. And, like, everybody is so much more like a normal person than we're led to believe with things like social media and even mainstream media, right? Because they do, especially mainstream media, it showcases a lot of the crazy people, right? It showcases rioters, like, throwing Molotov cocktails into buildings and
The
stuff.
things that get the most clicks, the most likes, the most comments are what grow in social media
Right.
and on the internet.
I don't throw Molotov cocktails at buildings, and I'm guessing most of you don't either. You know,
Most likely.
like, I don't rob gas stations, and I'm guessing most of you guys don't either. You know what I mean? But that's, like, what we see here. You know, and so I think that for people who are like, well, I don't rob grocery stores, why are you talking about, like, why are you trying to front on me and intimidate me? I think it's important to realize that I think, this is my opinion, or my understanding, I should say, not even opinion, my understanding, that he's not calling out anybody who disagrees with him politically or maybe has a different ideology or viewpoint. He's suggesting that if you're going to bring violence into his town, you better expect to have that reciprocated, as opposed to just letting people burn down your town, which is something that we've seen in some of the United States. And I don't know what it's like in some of the other countries out there with riots and how that works and how people
Quite a bit of
defend
rioting
themselves.
in France recently.
Right. Do people defend themselves? Do they not? What do the police do? I don't know. I have never participated in a riot, and I've never been where there's been a riot outside of the United States.
He has had someone shot at a riot a few blocks from his house, though.
Yeah, there was a riot a few blocks from my house, actually, and somebody shot at somebody who was just driving by. And it's, like, a little bit scary when you're, like, next to that, you know what I mean? But an interesting thing that happened, so I'll tell you guys this story. This is going to be kind of a long one today. But, so there was this riot, and this guy shot into a car of this guy who was driving by. And so I went over to Chase's house because they were planning to do another riot the next week, another protest. But
That was going to walk by, like, the next road down from your house.
yeah. And so I was like, hey, Chase, let me bring my family up and stay at your place tonight. They're going to do a riot. He's like, yeah, come on up. We'll make a party out of it. We actually were doing weapons training at the house while we were there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so there was the riot was planned. They call it a protest. And of course, like, there are people who protest. I'm 100% for protesting. Mm-hmm. I believe that our freedoms to stand in the street and proclaim what we believe is really important, especially if it's contrary to the government, because it's the government who would be the ones who would shut that down, right? And so in order to prevent the governments from shutting down free speech and things like that, it's important to exercise that. Now it's when people start to use violence, Molotov cocktails, punching people out with brass knuckles, like hitting people with boards, things like that, and guns too, like taking guns and shooting into offices or at people, like totally terrible, totally against that. That is not free speech, that is violence and should be condemned on every level. And so I went over to Chase's, but before this protest / riot came to be, an organization came together of people who were just going to stand by, armed, not engage with anybody, but just stand across the street to make sure like there's no shenanigans. And that happened. And then there was a good, peaceful protest. They were able to share their ideas. They were able to express themselves, but there was no violence. There was no...
Both sides were quite peaceful at that protest.
Yeah, it was super peaceful. And there was... The people who had a message to share were able to share that message without worrying that people on their own side were going to make their message diluted or ruined because of violence. Because that's what happens. If you have 9 people in a group and you all have something really important to say, but one of the people there's one person there who's just causing problems, it makes all 10 of you look bad.
Yeah.
And that's bad because the thing is those 9 people probably had a really important message, And that's why it's really important if you have somebody in your own group who's like, hey, we should add violence to this. We should start going knocking people out and burning buildings down. You got to be like, no, you're not with us. Don't accept that support because it will harm your message. Your message will be muddled in the violence and you won't be able to share that clearly and people won't be able to receive it in the way that you want them to. Yeah. And wherever you're coming from, whatever you're talking about, it matters for everyone. And so, anyway, so they were able to do that and it stopped the rioting in that region. It stopped it because they were like, we're not going to put up with it.
There were, during the peak of the BLM rioting a few years ago, there were a few protests where someone would like bring bricks and like
pallets of bricks, right?
Yeah, and they'd like get ready to start a riot. They'd like pick up the bricks and get ready to throw them. Now what I really respect is that there are several instances where instead of the violence happening, people around them would grab them and just hand them to the police. Say, this person's trying to get violent, stop them. I have a ton of respect for that. And Absolutely. The people who are at those protests and were shutting down violence and speaking their mind and letting themselves be heard in a peaceful way, I mean, excellent work. Good on you.
Yeah, wherever you stand on whatever topic, your voice will be better heard if you leave violence out of it. People change their minds when they're persuaded, not when they're forced. And this song, what I'm taking from this song is like, look, if you want to bring your violence... Like maybe your violence works in the city where everybody just kind of keeps to themselves, but here we take care of each other and here we're all armed and trained to defend ourselves. So mess around and find out. And I'm not saying like, yeah, mess around and find out, but at the same time, I understand where he's coming from very much. Because I'll tell you what, I like when people can share their ideas freely and it's not a question of like, am I going to walk away alive today?
Yeah.
Right?
And I don't like when people who didn't do anything wrong have their stuff smashed. That's not cool.
Yeah, don't smash people's stuff.
Around here we take care of our own. You cross that line, it won't take long for you to find out. I recommend you don't. Try that in a small town.
That's an interesting thing, and I didn't really catch this because I was separating these lines.
Okay.
You're saying I recommend you don't try that in a small town. You're saying I recommend you don't try that in a small town.
Yeah.
So the song's called Try That in a Small Town. It almost gives off that vibe, right? Which might even be for more clickbait, right? Just click on this because I'm trying to start something. But it almost, when you put the lyrics together and you see what he's saying, like, yes, if you read the headline, it is kind of, provocative, right? But when you read the lines, like, I recommend you don't try that in a small town. Now, it's not like, hey, please don't do this. It's like, mess around and find out, but please don't mess around and find out.
Yeah.
And yeah, anyway.
Try that in a small town.
I think if you were going to get mad at this for racism, you could get mad that there wasn't any black representation, because I don't think I saw a single black person.
I don't think I saw any Asians.
I think I just saw white people. I saw white people rioting, and I saw white people saying, try that in a small town. I think that's about all I saw. The claim that got this kicked off the radio is that it was racist. I understand the claim. Where the most recent riots were BLM riots, at least large scale, like widespread rioting in the nation was BLM. I can see the claim being that he was being racist by making a song that was so outwardly putting down what they had done. At the same time, I don't think that's what he was going for. He seemed a little like taken aback when the backlash came that he was being racist. I don't think he expected that backlash. I'm not surprised by it just because of the political climate we're in, but I don't really see much racism in the video. I don't know. If you think the song is really racist, let me know down in the comments, I guess. If you think it's not, let me know down in the comments. I'm just curious what like our viewers think of this. I don't know. It struck me as hey, don't do this. If you do, you're going to find out there's nothing good to do it in a small town. At the same time, the other takeaway I took from it was the importance of community in general. Where I live, everyone knows each other. Right. They all support each other. It's very common for someone to have a hard time to be like, hey, I was doing this work in my yard. I hurt myself. You call up your neighbors. Hey, can you come help me for a little bit?
Like 20 people show up.
And like, exactly. They're all there. They all show up. Someone's going to help you get the medical help you need. Some other people are going to take care of the job you were trying to do. And I don't live in a very small town, but we have a strong community where I live. And I think that's really what he's getting at. The communities need to support each other to prevent your community from getting destroyed. And that's really hard to do in like big cities where there's so many people smashed on top of each other. What really even is your community at this point? So I get the difficulty and the difference between small town and big city in those contexts. But really, do your best to build up a community of good support around you wherever you can find it. A lot of people find it in their neighborhoods, in their churches, or just like groups around them. They get together with people of like-minded activities who live near each other, and they'll make a small community there that can be there for each other.
D&D. That's the thing.
But yeah, just get your community. Be strong. Support each other. And, you know, when people come to do harm to your community, you'll have some more help to protect yourself from that community. And that's what he's getting at with this. If you're going at a strong community with violence, that strong community might fight back with violence.
And I'm just going to touch one last time on violence and just another thing. It's important to separate the violence from the reason for the violence, right? And so sometimes people be like, oh, he's like calling out BLM, blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, he's calling out the violence in this song from what I could tell, you know? And so if you're talking about the violence, it's like, yes, I don't care if he's the one going out and blasting up my neighborhood, you know, or if it's BLM or if it's Donald Trump or Joe Biden or like
Antifa or the
like,
Proud Boys.
Anybody. It doesn't matter. I don't want anybody coming in and throwing Molotov cocktails at my house. You know what I mean? I feel like that's just, what do you call that? The basic level of human decency. You don't throw Molotov cocktails at people's houses, right? It's like, hey, I'm John. Hey, I'm Remmington. Oh, I throw Molotov cocktails at people's houses. Oh, we can't be friends. You know what I mean? Like it just, you don't do that, right? But, so you'll sometimes see backlash and combativeness when it comes to violence. But when it comes to the actual ideas and things like that, yes, there's going to be arguments. But that's different. That's different from like, hey, try sharing your ideas in my town because we're going to shoot you up. And why don't you mess around and find out? No. And I don't think that that's the message here either. And I think it's important to notice that nuance, right? There's the reason and there's the violence. And the violence is always unacceptable. And whatever we're talking about, let's actually talk about it. Whatever that happens to be, whatever side you happen to fall on, I think that's where it's at. So anyway, interesting song. I could definitely see why people find this controversial given the political climate of the last 10 years.
5 particularly.
I mean, why can't we all just be friends? You know what I mean? It's like we could share ideas. I won't hurt you. You won't hurt me. No Molotov cocktails. Maybe real cocktails? Mocktails? Mocktails. That's all I'm saying. DuckTales. Woo-hoo.